So in our business of national security, where our job is to fly, fight, and win, our job is to be prepared for the unexpected, our job is to win no matter what, we better be masters at this game of innovation.
Innovation. It's a pretty hot topic in the military right now, but it's a source of frustration for military leadership at all different levels. Now, in part, that frustration is because it's pretty hit or miss. We have our success stories that we like to celebrate, but a lot of times we use those successes to try and inform the times that things didn't work out, try and figure out what it was that we were missing. And the other part of the frustration is that when we look out at these other organizations and these big tech companies, they seem to be innovating left and right. And when they talk about their people, they say that their people are talented, hardworking, motivated, dedicated. It's all the same words that we use to describe our people. So what is it that they're doing? Why are they able to innovate all the time and we feel like we're stagnating? Well, what I would offer is that we have two problems. The first is that when we think of innovation under the framework of something called game theory, that innovation is a game, we're playing the wrong kind of game. And the second problem is, do we know what we're asking for? Do we know what innovation actually is, and who can contribute? And I would say that we don't. So the first problem, what kind of game are we playing? So game theory is a subset of mathematics, popularized by a man named James Kars. And what Kars says is that everything in life can be thought of as being one of two kinds of games: finite games and infinite games. Now, a finite game has three main aspects to it. The first is that the players of the game are known. We know who's playing the game. The second aspect is that the players understand and agree upon the rules of the game. We know what you can do and what you can't do. And the third thing, and what's most important for what we're talking about today, is that winning of the game is defined. We know what winning looks like. So chess is a great example of a finite game. So in chess, whether you're playing yourself, your best friend, crazy 10-person chess, whatever kind of chess you're playing, you know who you're playing with. Second is everyone playing the game understands and agrees upon the rules of the game. We know what the pieces can do and what they cannot do. And lastly, we know what winning looks like. And we know the moment that winning has happened and who has won and who has lost. In a lot of finite games, we actually have a name for this moment. In chess, it's checkmate. Now, infinite games are pretty much the opposite in every regard. Infinite games have four aspects to them. The first is that the players of the game are not fixed. Over the course of the game, the players can change. Second is that the rules of the game are not fixed. Over the course of the game, the rules can be bent, broken, challenges can be inserted, challenges can be taken away. The third thing is that winning is undefined. Inherently, when winning is undefined, that means that the only possible outcome is that eventually you lose. And it's because of that third thing that we have our fourth thing. And that is that the players of an infinite game will continue to play the game until they can no longer play. Leadership author and speaker Simon Sinek actually puts it well when he says that the players will continue to play until they run out of either the resources or the will to play. So Snake and Tetris are great classic examples of infinite games. So here, typically the player is you. Now your goal in the game, in Snake, is to get the apple. In Tetris, it's to keep the blocks down. Your resource in both of these games is space. The game is over in Snake when you run into yourself or the walls, or in Tetris when the blocks get too high. Now, the problem with these games is they keep going and going and going. They never end. There's no point in which a screen pops up and says, "Congratulations, you win." The game is simply over when you run out of either resources, space, or the will to play. You stop playing. Now, in almost everything we do in the military, we play by the rules of finite games. Whenever you were going through your professional military education, whether that was basic, tech school, or otherwise, you, the student, are the player. And you're told how you may act and what the rules are for what you must do while you're in training. And at the end of training, there's going to be a measurement device that you're given, by which we'll determine whether you have passed or failed, won or lost. In our professional military education, we teach our supervisors that when they lay out objectives for their subordinates or their teams, that those objectives be SMART, specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-driven. That we know what winning looks like. And we do this in almost everything we do in the military, but not innovation. So why do I say that? So I'm going to paint a picture. So the squadron commander sends out an email. And in this email, the commander says, "Team, you guys are talented, motivated, dedicated, hardworking, and I know that you have great ideas. I want to hear them." So let's innovate. Let's make the squadron better. Send your ideas up through the chain. Now, before the story continues, there's already an inherent frustration here, and that is, well, what does better mean? Better for me? Better for you? Better for the commander? Better for the customer? I don't know. Do you? See, what's happened here is the commander has initiated an infinite game where the team doesn't know what better means. What does winning look like? And that has consequences. So as the story goes, an airman reads this email. And despite not having been given a definition of better, the airman comes up with his own definition of better. He says, okay, I think this is a great idea. So I'm going to do like the email says. I'm going to feed it up through the chain. Goes to the supervisor, says, sir, ma'am, I think if we do this idea, we can make the squadron better. We'll bring costs down by this much, or time to do this task by this much, and we can make the squadron better. And I think most of us have been in this one-on-one situation before where we get this response. So, airman, I appreciate your motivation and enthusiasm, but I think when we look at your idea and the risks and the costs associated with it, and the value that we could stand to gain, or not, because the idea could not work, I just don't think that that's the idea that we're looking for. See, the problem here isn't that the airman didn't necessarily have a good idea. It could have been a great idea. The problem is that the airman's definition of better and the supervisor's definition of better are not aligned. Because they don't share that same definition of better, what winning looks like, that idea dies right there in that room. And the problem for most of us is when you experience that too many times, you stop bringing ideas to the table. You get frustrated and tired playing the infinite game. And what we need is leaders going out to the teams and defining what winning looks like, aligning the team on a common definition of what better is. A great example that I really like is, so imagine the same email came out, and the airman went to the supervisor and said, sir, ma'am, I think we can make the squadron better if we plant daisies. I think most of us would agree that if the people under us brought to us the idea of planting daisies and that's what's going to make our organization better, are we going to take the risk of bringing that up to the next level? That's what we should be spending money, manpower, and resources on? I think we can say we probably wouldn't. But what if that email instead had said, team, we get a lot of distinguished visitors, and we're a pretty high visibility organization. So I want to start a beautification project. Send your ideas up through the chain. Now when the airman comes to the supervisor and says, I want to plant daisies, daisies don't sound so silly anymore. Because the team is now aligned and have a common definition of what better is. And daisies meets that definition, and so the team can move forward with the idea. So the second problem, do we know what we're asking for? Do we share a common understanding of what innovation actually is and who can contribute and participate? So what I believe we have is a mixed message. So there's a lot of high-level programs and initiatives out there directed towards innovation, and a lot of those are celebrated by leadership. But the problem with the marketing and the advertising of these programs is that it's not targeted towards our everyday airmen. We're trying to bring those people to the table, but the things that we're showing them are things like cool jets and new weapons platforms, crazy software that's going to do something awesome. The kinds of things that scientists, academics, researchers, engineers would be tackling, not your everyday airman. And when we ask ourselves, does the average med tech firefighter, the person over at public affairs that takes your picture, for the finance tech, that despite what they're hearing, that when they see that's what we think innovation looks like, do we really think that we're speaking to them and inviting them to the table? I think if we answer that question honestly, I think we would say that we're not inviting those people. And there's a disconnect between what it is that we're marketing and who we're marketing to. So how do we establish a common understanding of what innovation is? Well, let's just start with the definition. So a nice definition for innovation, coming from Harvard, is simply something that is novel and useful. Novel simply meaning new. Now, new doesn't necessarily mean new to the world. That's invention. Simply new to your organization and how you do business. You don't have to be a genius to innovate. It just has to be new to your organization. So if we take that and we say, okay, so it doesn't have to be invention. It doesn't have to be singular genius coming up with something new to the world. Where do we guide our efforts? Where do we put our people to task to try and innovate? Well, in business, we have what we call the 3 Ps, the people, the process, and the product. And the idea here is that for your people, if you take care of them, you train them well, you take care of their health, and you watch out for their morale, that your people are going to use your process, which is the tools that you give them to develop the product. And as long as that process is efficient, you watch out for your costs and your wasted resources, that you should develop a quality product. So a lot of times when we think of innovation and we confuse it with invention, we start thinking and looking towards product. But the most meaningful innovation actually comes from when we make refined changes to our process, the tools that our people use every day. And so already now we are being inclusive of everyone. It is the tools that even the lowest person in your organization uses every day. And if you go to them and you say, what about the tools that you use every day frustrates you? How can this be better? In some measurable way, can we make our organization better? So how do we know this is going to work? How do we know that if we take a singular leader and that leader defines for the team what winning looks like, aligns the team, focuses our energies and our resources towards accomplishing a specific objective, and as long as we put that objective within our process, the tools that our people use every day, that we can finally start to include everyone and create meaningful change? Let's look at some of the organizations that we're so envious of in their ability to innovate. So Amazon started off as an online marketplace, much like many others. Now their product is convenience. The fact that I can sit on my couch and order something on their website, and instead of having to go out to Walmart or some other store, that as long as I have the time, it'll show up to my front door. But at some point they had a leader that said, team, what I want is that when a customer goes on our website and orders something, instead of it taking a week to 10 days, it'll arrive at their door in 2 days. Go team, go. Aligned the team on figuring out how within our processes can we deliver that change. And they are the company that they are today, based on that principle. So it turns out in the military, we do have some success stories of our own that mirror this. So we're having this problem in our deployed environments where when our service members get hurt, the traditional way of managing their pain is opioids. But opioids have several problems. First, they can be relatively expensive. Second, they're addictive. And the third thing is I can't put you back to work. I can't put you behind a machine gun when you're on drugs. So the thing that you're actually getting paid to be here to do, you're not doing it. So how do we tackle those three problems? And they turn to acupuncture. It's a thousands-of-year-old method for managing pain. Not new, but new to the way that we do business, and therefore it was innovative. So how can we do this? How do we make this happen within our organizations? So first off, you need to understand that there is no genius required anywhere. Okay, it doesn't take a genius to go to the organization, to the people, and say, I want to cut shipping times from 5 days, 10 days, whatever, down to 2 days. It just takes courage and audacity. So there's one more thing I want to talk about, and that's culture. See, culture is actually part of our process. Culture is our communication, the dynamics of who has the authority to say what kind of decisions we can make, and how we can communicate with each other, and how we deal with those that question or challenge the way that we do business. See, you have two kinds of cultures. You have an open loop culture and a closed loop culture. And you can innovate in either one of them, but the problem is depending on which one you exist in, there are long-term consequences. So in a closed loop culture, it simply is what it sounds like. You're in a closed loop. You can never look out and nobody can question why it is that you're doing what you're doing. The tools that you use every day, are those the best that those tools could be? And is the product that you're actually delivering even relevant anymore? See, an open loop culture allows people to come in from the outside or those within to look out and say, is this the best that we could be doing? Is this how we should be doing this? And is the thing that we're actually doing worth doing anymore? A great example that I like is cavalry. So you imagine during World War II that you're a cavalryman. Now, up to that point in history, cavalry had played such a critical role in warfare. But you can go in and you can try and develop the finest cavalry in the world. You can have the best horses and the most well-trained riders in the world to deliver the best product, being the most feared fighting force on the battlefield. But you imagine at some point during World War II, you're sitting there and you show up to the battlefield, and across the field, you're looking at a bunch of tanks. Don't you wish that at some point someone would have raised their hand and said, what is it that we were hoping to accomplish here? Why is it that we're doing what we're doing? Is this even relevant anymore? Or should we have been spending all this manpower, time, and resources doing something else? We need to have an open loop culture. where we accept people coming into our organization and asking why, and that we answer those questions and we look for meaningful answers. And in the absence of meaningful answers, that we now have a new problem that we need to address. So what you need to do is you need to figure out a way to talk to your people. Whether you have some sort of leadership forum, some sort of spark tank where you just get the ideas flowing and you say, team, where within our processes, the tools that you use every day, do you feel like there's room for improvement? And then you pick one. Just one. And it doesn't have to be big. And you set a measurable, achievable objective to that. And you turn to the team and you say, this is your goal. This is what winning looks like. Because our teams need to feel a win. See, one of the beautiful things about a finite game is that sometimes you do lose. And in the beauty of losing is what we learn is that you can take those experiences to the next game and hopefully play better. But when you get a taste for the win, there's something about us as human beings that we respond to that. We love the taste of victory. And when we get to the next game, we're hungry for another win. So our teams need to feel a win. But again, we need to understand that it's okay to fail. We have this saying that we're using a lot right now, fail fast and move on. Okay. Thomas Edison said, I didn't fail, I simply found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. A lot of times our failures can be just as informative to our successes. And it's important that we understand in the military where a lot of times we do not have a mindset that's acceptant to failure, that it's okay to fail. So the thing that I want to leave you with is that what we're really looking for here is progress. So progress is something that the military has done for a long time. For decades, we've been progressing and getting better at what it is that we do. So we need to be asking those questions. And then when we go in with our singular leaders, defining for our teams what the problem is that they need to be solving within the process, to align the team and focus their energies, that's when we can finally get back to progressing the way that we keep dreaming about. Thank you.